ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into Part 2 of the series What If Deku Had Unknow Adaptability Quirk. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. It's been a month since the big battle. All Might has been tirelessly hunting the remaining forces of All for One even with his limited time. The battle had done a number on him, as he could only go into his muckled form for about 22 hours, which may seem long, but it is decreasing by the day. When he is not in that form, he looks skinny, sickly, and occasionally spits blood if he stays muscled too long. They have yet to find more villains similar to the one he had captured that day. It was mindless husk due to the host body being forced to hold multiple quirks. Izuku was out, having dealt with another group of skirmishers on his way to the store to get some snacks. He kinda missed their little skirmishes, even if they're boring. All Might had a press conference announcing his nearing retirement, which caused an uproar, but he calmed them down, saying he will still be on the job for the next decade to allow time for more heroes to take his place. My time may be drawing near, but I trust with my reminder of time, more heroes will rise to surpass me and go even further beyond. Plus Ultra. The speech had a great impact on hero society. Many heroes who heard this felt a fire in their hearts to do better, to carve their name into the tapestry of history. Izuku was walking past an alleyway when preemptive warning activated, knowing something was going to fly towards his neck. He dodged, but a portal appeared behind him as a metal shackle closes around his neck. He reached up to remove it, but he passes out. Before he can hit the ground, a portal opens, and he falls into it. This incident does not go unnoticed, as a few passers-by began to call for heroes and police for aid. They arrived and began taking witness reports while the scene was surveyed. They find nothing but a dropped bag of snacks. The appearance of the child was sent to heroes to embiggen the search area. Meanwhile, Inko was at home doing some chores. Izuku should be back by now. Did the other kids fight him again? She heard a knock on the door. She opened the door to Nizu with a serious face. Inko, Izuku has been taken. Inko in shock goes to sit down on the couch. Who? We believe it was All for One's closest aides, as they would have been the only ones to know of his condition. A river of tears began to flow out of Inko as Nizu tried to comfort her. Don't worry, All Might's already out searching along with many other heroes. We'll find him soon, safe and sound. Underground. The doctor began trying to study the boy's DNA, but progress is slow as every sample decays too quickly to get anything substantial. He tried to study his skin cells, but the results were the same. He was running out of time, as he knew that All Might had begun his search, and the boy's quirk was adapting by the second to completely invalidate the shackle's hold. In a last-ditch effort, he tried to pump the boy's blood into his master's pod. The blood saturated the nutritional liquid in the pod, making it opaque. After a few seconds, the liquid drained from the pod, revealing a fully healed, but unconscious All for One. His master's body was taken to an examination table, as the doctor marveled at the sight of the healed flesh, but the doctor had forgotten one small detail. The boy's quirk was ravenous. As All for One's body began seizing and enshacking, knocking over the table, the top of his head and his right arm began to slowly and painfully rip itself off. Muffled sounds of pain came from his mouth. The tendrils still stuck to his body, snapping as it pulled away. The doctor looked in disgust as the final tendril snapped and the chunks of flesh splat on the cold ground. The wound on All for One's head and arm slowly closed and healed over, but blood was slowly pooling in his mouth. The doctor quickly ordered the Nomu to place him back into the pod. The doctor turned back to look at the lumps of flesh. It had merged and had grown considerably larger. He watched in fascination as it writhes, morphs, and grows into a perfect copy of Nana Shimura in her hero costume. She looked around in surprise at her hand, then at the doctor, and seeing Izuku passed out, punched the doctor, launching him into the wall. As he laid there, a black sludge poured out of his mouth as the was teleported away along with the body of All for One. She looked around again and sees many variants of the monster All Might had fought. Nana punched with all the power she had and blew a hole right to the sky. The opening had a few trees surrounding it. In Nana's vision was the icons Izuku had described. Ignoring that, she picks up Izuku and flies out of the hole she made to an amber sky. It was sunset. She admired the sky she thought she would never see again. She then saw that law enforcement beginning to converge on their location. A shockwave was heard as All Might was floating next to her, a surprised look on his face. "Master? How are you here? It seems there's still much to learn about Ninth's quirk. We need to get to UA to get this shackle off him." With a nod, they both blast off in the direction of UA, to the awe of the people below, who recorded the whole encounter. This video caused a new wave of speculation of All Might's quirk and drew the ire of a certain bomber boy. UA. All Might and Nana land on UA grounds where Nizu and Powerloader were standing by. They took him to the nurse's office, and it took 10 minutes to safely open the shackle. The shackle had many mechanisms to ensure sedation and a laser to which they assumed to decapitated the victim. Nizu allowed Powerloader to study the device. As soon as the device was open, Izuku woke up and looked around wearily. What happened? Inko lunged to hug Izuku with incoherent babbling of worries and fears. He consoles her while patting her back. He looks over to see All Might and Nana looking at him in relief. "Shimura? How are you here? I thought you could only exist in the Vestige realm. You were captured by a doctor who worked for All for One. He tried to use your blood to try on revive the corpse of All for One. Your quirk is more than we've already know." All Might and Nizu's eyes widen. They believed that his body was properly disposed of. Now that the doctor had escaped, who knows what could be done with it? Nana touches Izuku's shoulder, and her body disassembles into red tendrils with many small green eyes and is reabsorbed into his body. Izuku looks at his arms as he turns them into a writhing mass of red tendrils. He turns back, immediately realizing that he hadn't been paying attention to the physical aspects of his quirk. The room was silent, having witnessed the transformation. It was grotesque. The shiver-inducing sound of melding flesh and cracking bones terrified and disgusted them. Meanwhile, Izuku was checking on the new pop-ups in his vision. Quirk disabled. Diagnosing. Quirk running at 5%. Quirk function return S2 hours. Intruder connection re-established. Quirk running at 73%. Resuming. Intruder disarmed. Disconnecting. Complete. Malicious will deleted. Deleting. Complete. Quirk synergy. All for one. One for all. Quirk sight. Infrared quirk progenitor. Izuku suddenly was inundated with information of the quirks around him. The flood slowly stops as the information is cataloged and stored away. Izuku opens the quirk tab to check. Quirks. Preemptive warning. Impact recoil. Flight. Kinetic booster. Ultra strength enhancer. Dual mental processing. Factor fiction. Quirk sight. Regeneration. All for one. Velocity manipulation. Kinetic stockpile. Energy constructs. Smoke elemental. Dash one for all. Spear-like bones. Spring-like limbs. Warping. Air cannon. Rivet stab. Multiplier. Infrared. Life force. Radio waves. Hard flame fan. Impure beam. Dark ball. Telekinesis. Ventriloquist. Sickle. Dark cowl. Sword. Barb limbs. Super regeneration. Mutilation. Quirk progenitor. Izuku was slightly disappointed by the amount of quirks. He expected more from the demon lord of the underworld, knowing he was around since the dawn of quirks. He then relayed the list to the others in the room. Upon hearing it, they knew there was much to do. It's been years since that day in the nurse's office. Izuku had spent many of them training the quirks he gained from All for One, though Quirk Progenitor has been a bit of a mystery along with Quirk Synergy. The quirk gave him information on the quirks around him and puts pressure on other people. They felt as if their quirk was trying to leave them. Other than that, Quirk Synergy has yet to trigger again, which brings him to today after another fight with some goons. The skirmishes have died down, but the fights have been getting intense. Well, maybe for them, Izuku had to hold back a lot as to not injure them too badly, though he commends them for at least trying. His reputation as the unbeatable has pushed many away from him, though Bakugu still comes after him from time to time. Tell me what happened, nerd. He's been asking that since the kidnapping. Izuku couldn't really tell him anything, so he stays silent. His explosions may have gotten a lot more powerful, but he hasn't really improved his finesse as much. Since the rescue was recorded, a lot of speculation about the true capability of All Might's quirk had spread around. Everyone was talking about it, so All Might decided to address the rumors as soon as possible, which just so happened to be a talk show. All Might sits to the right of the host after being brought on with the applause of the audience. All Might, it is wonderful to have you here. It's my pleasure. Now I believe that I speak for the audience here. After seeing you flying, the true nature of your quirk has been brought into question. Are you willing to at least reveal some parts about it? Well, I can't reveal much, but what I can say is to expect many more surprises in the future. After the interview, All Might was seen flying around the whole of Japan during his patrols. He has shown off some of the other quirks, mainly FA Gene and Gearshift, as the public noticed that he was moving a lot faster than usual. They believe that All Might's quirk had gone through an awakening, and speculation for which battle it occurred and began. Anyways, Izuku now stands in front of the gates of UA, though he's been through it many times before, but this time as an actual student of UA and not just Nizu's. Now you may be wondering why he's even here to take the entrance exam. He's doing it as formality and to prove that he got in fairly. He may have gotten training early, but he made a deal to only use the physical aspects of his quirk, meaning no quirks and self-defense only. Standing there, he feels Bakugo walking behind him and try to shoulder check him. It doesn't work as he almost falls over before his is caught by Izuku by the arm. I don't need you help, you bastard. Nice to see you too, Kaken. Don't fucking call me that, you damn nerd. Good luck in the exam. He scoffs with his usual angry look as he continues into the school. Izuku walks after him, kicking a brick which suddenly popped up. Under it was a piston which retracted. Izuku knew Nizu was messing with him, and he dreaded what was to come in the written exam. A few hours later, he was right. His exam was 10 times the thickness of the other examens, filled with a bunch of esoteric questions and 1,000-word essays. He barely got it done in time. He really wished he had a dexterity adaptation to write faster, but what's done is done. He now sits in an auditorium, and who would be seated right next to him but Katsuki Bakugo-sai. Izuku reads through the pamphlet provided to each candidate. The spotlights suddenly come on, pointed at the stage, revealing present mic. Good morning, everybody. Can I get a hey? With a flourish, he put his hand to his ear to listen better. Izuku, feeling the awkwardness of the crowd, replies with a fist in the air. Hey! It was loud enough to shake the building. Thank you, listener. I seem we've got the second coming of the voice hero. Now on to our feature presentation. He began to explain the exam. Students were sorted into groups and taken to the exam site. The objective? Destroy as many robots as you can. There were 1, 2, and 3 pointers, and as Mike was segueing, he was interrupted by a blue-haired, bespectacled candidate. Sir, I believe there's a mistake in the pamphlet. It states we will be facing 4 types of robots, but you've only mentioned 3. If this is a mistake on your part, one, question your qualifications. And you back there with the green hair, if you're not going to take this seriously, I think you are not worthy of being a hero. Izuku does not dignify him with a response, instead looking at him with a look of, are you seriously saying that? Not only did he interrupt present Mike, he insulted him, and he called out a student. He had no problem with responding to his call and response. Please sit, examinee. I was just getting to that, and don't jump to conclusions. A hero's greatest tool is their vigilance. The 4th robot you will encounter is the Zero Pointer, which is more of an obstacle than an enemy, and that's it. I wish you all good luck. Plus Ultra. Izuku got onto his bus, and thankfully Bakugo was not in his group. The mood in the bus was tense. Some were worried, and others seemed overconfident in their skills, or rather quirks. That blue-haired guy was here, as well as a weirdly flamboyant Frenchebo, flaunting how shiny and dazzling he is. This was going to be a long bus ride. He had a few glances thrown at him, but they seemed to have dismissed him as a non-threat, which confused him. They arrive at the test site and were led out of the bus by present Mike to the main entrance to the site. They stood around waiting for the green light to begin. Many examinees have formed into groups to better combat the robots. Izuku noticed a girl with brown hair, seemingly very nervous. He tried to encourage her, but he felt someone try to grab him. He catches the hand before it makes contact and turns around. They wince as Izuku grabbed them pretty hard. Biometal generation adapted. What's your issue, man? Don't just grab somebody by surprise. You don't know how they'll react. You were trying to distract that girl. Did you not listen to Present Mike when he said to not jump to conclusions, or is he not qualified enough to teach you? This gets him to shut up as a stuttering noise came out of his mouth trying to rebuke him. Begin. Izuku rushes into the barely opened gate, blowing a few students back. Many of the students had a sneer on their faces, believing he had started early, but they were proven wrong by Present Mike. What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real life. That greenie has the right idea. Go, go, go. Izuku runs to the center of the site, attracting many robots to his location. He stands there and waits for the horde of bots to converge on him. Izuku decided to use this as training, fighting the robots with minimal property damage. Using light punches, he destroys groups of 3 or 4 with each hit, sending them into each other. Some of the 3-pointers shot rockets, which Izuku redirected to the other bots, or took head-on, leaving himself unscathed. After 5 minutes, the robots stop coming as they have learned that he was an opponent they could not beat. Izuku had managed to gain 67 points, so he started to patrol around helping any examinees who were in danger. Some of them accused him of kill-stealing, but as the heroes are not disqualifying him, they just grumbled and continued on their way. Izuku then found a purple-haired kid with a brainwashing quirk similar to his own, struggling with a 1-pointer, so he decided to help by tossing him a metal spear made from robot hulls. The brainwasher was confused but grateful for the weapon as he stabbed into the robot. He turned to thank the person who helped him, but he was already gone. There was about 3 minutes left in the exam. Izuku was just wandering around with some robots coming to attack him, bringing his point total to a decent 82. There was a sudden rumbling as the 0-pointer had entered the battlefield. Izuku stood there looking at it as the others were running past him, many looking at him as if he was an idiot. He waited for it to get closer as it destroys the top of a few buildings. Rubble was about to fall on the brunette from earlier, so Izuku dashed over to save her, appearing to teleport to her and back to where he was stood. Surprised by the change in scenery, she thanks her savior. Thank you. No problem. Vertigo resistance adapted. Izuku walks towards the 0-pointer. Wait, where are you going? That robot is worth nothing. We should go. Someone has to stop it. That was a lie. He just wanted to destroy it to annoy Nizu. Izuku rushes and jumps up to the robot's head, his arms turning into red tendrils wrapping around the robot's head, and crushes it into a pile of sparking metal. Izuku then carefully lowers the rest of the robot onto the street. Test over. Is anyone hurt? No, recovery girl, we're all good here. All right, Sunny, thank you for not destroying the place too much. Cementos would have been annoyed. She leaves to tend to the others. Hey, what's your name? Oa. Izuku Midoriya. Thank you for saving me. I'm Achiko Uraraka. Don't mention it. It's what anyone should do. Examinee 456, please attend to the observation booth. Flashback. In the observation room, the teachers are observing the practical exam. Nizu was quite interested in how Izuku would do with his self-imposed limitations, while All Might desired to see how Izuku had improved. The staff are taking note of a few students. It seemed that it was a good batch, but most of their attention is caught by a green-haired examinee fighting a horde of bots efficiently without too much damage to his surroundings, which was impressive seeing the power of the hits, though it did confuse them as he was not pursuing them, instead let the bots come to him. Aizawa turned to Nizu to see him with a smile looking at the same screen. Principal, do you know the kid? Of course, I know him, he is my student after all. The other now understand the lingering dread that started all those years ago. Wait, if he's your student, has he been going to your office? How did we not notice him? The staff room is literally in the way. Nizu flashes them a cheeky smile. They sigh and look back to the screen. Why isn't he hunting down the robots? Well, we made a deal. If he succeeds, he is allowed to skip all academic classes during his time here. The staff look back to the screen. It seems the bots have decided to not engage with Midoriya, and he began running around the arena helping the other examinees. They were wondering if he knew the special condition of the exam. I can assure you that he does not. Now let's see how he handles this. Nizu presses a big red button, releasing the true obstacle of this exam, the 0-pointer. The staff watched as Midoriya saved an examinee from falling rubble by seemingly teleporting the girl to him. What exactly is his quirk? We've seen him blow robots to smithereens, tank missiles, and now teleportation. Is it energy manipulation? But that doesn't explain the teleportation completely. His quirk is reactive mutation, which allow his body to adapt from harm until he is immune to it. The feats you see are all physical, albeit supercharged by his regeneration. A loud crunch of metal catches the attention of the room. They turn to see the head of the zero-pointer crushed as Midoriya slowly lowered the rest of the zero-pointer onto the road. It seems we got ourselves our first hero course student. Niza hit the intercom button for Izuku's site. Examinee 456, please attend to the observation room. After a few minutes, Izuku arrives to the observation room with a knock. Good afternoon. Midoriya, please come in. Izuku opens the door to a sea of heroes, which makes him freak out a bit. Collecting himself, he responds, Good afternoon, Nizu. Heroes. I assume this is about my performance in the exam. Yes, it is, Midoriya. You got top scores in the written exam and have gained a total 162 points in the practical exam with 82 villain points and 80 hero points. Beating my record by 40 points, young Midoriya. That's right. Congratulations, you are now an official hero course student of Class 1A. Your homeroom teacher will be Shota Aizawa, also known as Eraserhead. Thank you for having me. Aizawa has an unreadable expression, and he makes a noise which could be interpreted as agreement. We'll see what you really are in a week. Izuku wakes up bright and early, makes breakfast, goes for his run, and prepares to set off for his first class. Inko, of course, was fussing over him, asking if he had forgotten anything. He assured her that it was fine and he left. He now stands in front of his classroom with a giant door. He walks into a pretty weird scene. Bakugo with his feet up on the desk with that blue-haired kid robotically reprimanding him. Take your feet off that desk this instant. It is disrespectful to the heroes who came before you. And why should I listen to you, Four Eyes? I'm Tinya Ida from Sumai Academy. Oh, so you're a pompous prick with a stick up their ass. Izuku looks at the scene in amusement. Hey, Midoriya. I'm glad you made it in. Izuku turns around to see Uraraka waving at him. Hey, I'm glad you got in too. You there. The blue-haired boy walks up to him and does a 90-degree bow. Izuku looks at him confused. I apologize for my conduct during the exam. It was unbecoming of a future hero. My name is... I've heard, but we should be getting to our seats. Izuku goes to his seat, but to the others he was moving very quickly. Lita noted that the speed that he was going at was about half his top speed. The door suddenly opens, revealing a large yellow sleeping bag with a tried face poking out of it, slowly inching to the teacher's desk. This goes unnoticed by most of the class, excluding Izuku, Momo, and Todoroki. Out of the bag reveals a disheveled-looking man Izuku recognized as Eraserhead. He slams his hands on the podium to get the students' attention. The students scramble to their seats. Aizawa disappointedly says, My name is Aizawa Shota, and I'm your homeroom teacher. It took you all 8 seconds to get to your seats, and only a few even noticed I was here. Those few seconds are the difference between life and death. Now put on your gym uniforms and meet me at the field. Midoriya should know where it is. Just follow him. By the time they got up, Midoriya is already at the door beckoning them to follow. In the boys' changing room. Man, I thought you'd look like a monster under there. They were looking at Izuku's exposed chest. He was muscular, sure, but it looked like he just trained lightly. My quirk just compacts my muscles, but I do get the benefit of having little to no muscle decay. What I would do to have that. My name is Ijiro Kirishima. Izuku Midoriya. Instant shift cells adapted. They arrive at the field with Aizawa waiting. You're here to do a quirk apprehension test. But what about orientation? Heroes don't waste time. Now you get to use your quirks freely in these tests. That sounds like fun. Fun, huh? How about this? Whoever gets last place is expelled. But that's not fair. Life isn't fair. Natural disasters, villain attacks, discrimination. Our jobs as heroes is to balance the scales. Midoriya, you got first in the entrance exam. What's your highest score on your ball throw? My quirk is a mutation. I don't think my result is best to prove your point. Alright, Bakugo, what was your record? 60 meters. Do it with your quirk. Bakugo goes into the circle and goes into a classic pitcher pose and launches the ball in an explosion. Die. Aizawa then shows his score. It reads 1.1 kilometers. The students get serious, not wanting to be the one expelled. 50-meter dash. Izuku and Bakugo stand ready at the start line, though Izuku was a bit looser. The robot counted them down. 3, 2, 1, go. Izuku appears at the finish line almost instantly, with Bakugo following behind with an angry scowl. 0.01 seconds. 2.94 seconds. Grip strength. Izuku gripped until it hit the machine's limit. 999.99 kilograms. Standing long jump. Izuku cleared the sandbox. Repeated side steps. Izuku did pretty well, though he was narrowly beat by Minoru Mineta. Ball throw. The scores for the class were pretty normal for the most part, that is of course not counting Uraraka getting a score of infinity by floating the ball into space. Izuku steps into the circle and feels Aizawa activate his quirk on him. Which was stupid, he already told him his quirk was a mutation. Annoyed, he launches the ball with just a flick of his wrist, getting a score of 20 kilometers. Aizawa noticed that he was not giving it his all throughout the tests. Midoriya, stop holding back, or you'll be expelled. Fact. Midoriya gets his ball and his body moving like he had no bones, gets into a modified pitcher pose. Everyone should hold on to something. They got ready as Izuku's body suddenly whips forward, launching the ball with a shockwave, destroying nearby windows, triggering car alarms, moving clouds, and launching the class, including Aizawa, back a few meters. Many of them looked in awe at Izuku. Was that good enough, teach? He gets up from the ground and dusted himself off. No, Midoriya, I'm going to need you two to do every previous test again. No holding back this time. Fine. Aizawa looks at Midoriya's score. Infinity. Average speed Mach 12. Midoriya does the tests again. 50-meter dash. Error/teleportation. Grip strength. Machine destroyed. Standing long jump. 50 kilometers. Repeated side steps. Incalculable. Distance run. Izuku kept pace with Momo, who was doing the race with a scooter. They shook hands during it as they introduced themselves. They ran for so long Aizawa had to call it early as to not waste any more time. After they were done, Midoriya was not even winded. Heightened energy storage adapted. Potency increased. Carrot energy reactor. Seated toe touch. It goes as expected as Izuku folds himself in half. Sit-ups. Izuku goes so fast, he looked like he had two upper bodies, one laying on the ground and the other at the end of a sit-up. Alright, these are your results. A board turned on displaying their names. Izuku, of course, was first. This had infuriated Bakugo so much he had the bright and logical idea to let out his rage by lunging at Izuku, who turned around bored as he faced Boom Boom Boy. Before Bakugo can get too close, he is restrained by Aizawa using the bandages he had as a scarf. What the hell are these things? Settle down. Whatever grievances you have with Midoriya can be settled during training. He keeps struggling with the restraints. Aizawa is getting annoyed. If you don't stop, you can consider yourself expelled. Bakugo calms down, still with an enraged look on his face. Also, nobody is getting expelled. You'll find your schedule at the podium in class. Aizawa leaves, leaving the students stunned. Class 1 is seated in their classroom waiting for homeroom to begin, though they are wondering why Midoriya was missing. Aizawa suddenly opens the door as the class gets settled in 4 seconds. Good, they've improved. Aizawa gets to his podium, but before he could speak, a student raised their hand. He allowed them to speak. Sir, do you know why Midoriya is absent? Midoriya will not be joining us in any academic classes as he has already graduated UA academically. You will be seeing him later during heroics. Then where is he now if not in class? He should either be in the gym or the library. Now enough questions, class is in session. Some were jealous of Midoriya, especially Bakugo, who looked like he was about to blow a gasket in his seat. Why the hell does he get to skip classes? I'm the best hero here, I shouldn't need classes. Later, Izuku arrives to class and sits at his desk. Only when he looks up does he realize that the class was staring at him. What's with the looks? Where the hell have you been, you lazy bastard? I was in the library. Why? Midoriya, you were gone for the entire morning. We're curious why you were exempted from normal classes. The principal allowed it after taking his test, and besides, you should all sit. Teacher's coming. As if on cue, the door flies open. I'm entering the room like a normal person. Exited murmurs sounds all around in the room. Good afternoon, Class 1A. I am All Might, your heroics teacher. Now, the most important part of being a hero is style. The left wall of the classroom opens up to reveal suitcases numbered corresponding with their seats. Get changed and meet me at the Mock City. Later, The class is gathered at the entrance of the mock city. They are all dressed in their hero costumes. Izuku was wearing a simple dark green, armored self-mending bodysuit which covers most of his body, leaving his head and hands exposed, and a utility belt full of medical supplies. The girls had a bit of trouble looking at him without blushing. A short purple grape-headed boy wearing a diaper in the back was on his hand and knees. It should have been me, not him. It's not fair. He was ignored as All Might began class. Now you all truly look the part of a hero, but a hero is more than just looks. All Might pulls out some flashcards from his back pocket. Ahem, all of you will be randomly split into teams of 2. The scenario is villains have hit a nuke in a building. It is the hero's job to either capture the villains or touch the bomb, while the villain's goal is to run out the clock or defeat both heroes. Any questions? How do we pick our partner? With these, All Might pulls out 2 boxes to select the teams. Got teamed as heroes with Toru Hagakure, who Izuku noticed was just a pair of gloves and shoes. Please don't tell me you're naked. Izuku sees the glove go to scratch what is presumably the back of her head. He got his answer. Okay, you are not going into a fight. Like that. No offense, but against Bakugo and Todoroki not much you can do. I believe that you could have done recon, but with the ice under you, you're not sneaking up on anybody, and you would be risking hypothermia and potentially frostbite. That's a very good point, young Midoriya. Hagakure, you will be with me, and be Midoriya's mission control, keeping an eye on the villain's movements. But what about Midoriya? It wouldn't be fair for him to fight alone. It would be unfair. Well, Midoriya, are you up for the challenge? Of course I am. A hero never backs down from a fight. Then let the training begin. Izuku walks into the freezing cold building and is told the location of the bomb and goes straight to it, sensing that Todoroki was there too. On the way, Hagakure informed him that Bakugo was nearby. Bakugo came flying down a hallway with explosions at him with his classic right hook primed and ready. Izuku takes the hit head on, not bugging an inch, and in the smoke of the explosion grabs Bakugo and throws him back. Potency increased. Kinetic shock resistance. Potency increased. Heat resistance. Potency increased. Heightened eardrum durability. It seems some things don't change, do they, Kaken? Don't call me that punching bag. Before Bakugo can lunge at him, Izuku appears in front of him and punches him in the gut, sending him back down the hallway and into the back wall. He slowly gets up and raised his arm to pull the pin on his gauntlet. Bakugo, stop, you'll collapse the whole building. His warning is unheeded as the pin is pulled. Izuku tried to get close enough to destroy the gauntlet, but he was too late as it fired at point blank. Smoke and dust obscure the camera as the class waited in bated breath for what had happened. The smoke clears. Surprisingly, it hadn't done too much damage to the building, however the reason for that would become obvious. Izuku was on the floor, smoke coming off his body. The top half was charred black with red flesh seen between the cracks of blackened skin. His skull was exposed, his eyes now missing, leaving black sockets of writhing flesh within. Bakugo froze at the sight before him, as he quickly removing the bracers from his shaking arms while breathing heavily. The bracers crack onto the floor and rolls right beside Midoriya's smoldering body. All Might and the class stared at the screen. Some had puked at the sight of Midoriya. All Might couldn't believe the sight before him, as he knew he was very resilient, but he held out hope that Midoriya could recover from this. As Bakugo was having a panic attack, Midoriya's body suddenly sits up and slowly rolls his shoulder. Charred flesh falls off his body and onto the floor, revealing healthy skin underneath. This continues until his entire upper body was free from it, his suit slowly covering him back up. This brought a wave of relief from the class. Bakugo looks at him in fear, seeing the person he had killed come back to life. All Might speaks from the speakers in the room. Young Midoriya, are you all right? His vocal cords, still new, causes the next words to be a bit hoarse and sluggish. I'm fine. Do you wish to continue? I do. All right. Match resumed. Katsuki Bakugo disqualified. These words began to echo in Bakugo's head as Izuku continues to the bomb room. Bakugo is lead out of the building by some robot's eyes still clouded over in shock. Opening the door to the bomb room, Midoriya is met with a wall of ice quickly lurching toward him. He allows it encase him. Todoroki, seeing this, breathes out. You shouldn't have come here alone. Suddenly the ice cracks and shatters, flinging shards of ice at Todoroki. Make sure your enemy is out before you let your guard down. All Might hadn't even announced your win. He sent another wave of ice at Midoriya, hoping to catch him again. Did you really think that would work that twice? You should consider other options. I am not breaking my pledge. Another wave of ice is sent after him, albeit slightly slower. Izuku, ignoring what he said, dodges and goes punch him. Todoroki summons an ice wall to protect himself, but it was no use as Izuku fist goes straight through it and connects with his chin, knocking him out. Cold resistance adapted. Izuku destroys the ice cocoon around the bomb and touches it. Heroes win. Izuku carries Todoroki out of the building and takes him to Recovery Girl, who lightly reprimands him for knocking him out, but is at least thankful they aren't hurt too badly. Izuku then goes into the observation room to rejoin his class. They immediately crowd him, asking if he's okay and that he should have stayed in the nurse's office. He calms them down and excuses himself. All Might bids him farewell and continues with the other matches. The matches after were a lot more serious, as a sense of fear was imbued in everyone as they stared, pulling their punches, using less power. Each match were more about strategy than pure power. The class ends with a sense of consequence. That with great power comes great discipline to hone it and use it for good. Their imagination ran wild with nightmares of dismembered and disfigured villain made from their own actions. The next day of class was weird, as the incident yesterday had yet to leave their minds. Bakugo was weirdly quiet, not looking at anyone. Aizawa walked into an orderly and quiet classroom. Good morning, class. I've seen the recording of the yesterday's training. It is good that you have taken the lesson to heart, but don't let one accident hold you back. Bakugo. He raised his head. If you had fired that shot at anyone else, you would have been in cuffs before you left the mock city. He looks back down, reliving the moment, trying and failing to stop his shaking hands. But Midoriya has argued your case. You will be allowed to continue here on some conditions. You will have mandatory therapy sessions with Hound Dog however often he decides. Your gauntlets are removed from your hero costume until there is proof that you will not misuse them. And if another incident occurs to anyone, you will be expelled under surveillance. Is that understood? He nods, angry. His dream had to be saved by that bastard. Good, now today you will be making a decision that will affect the rest of your time here. He pauses as the class waits in dread. It is time to elect your class president. It's something normal. Izuku was in the library reading a book on advanced quirk biology theory when an alarm sounded, indicating that the walls of UA had been breached. He set his book down and leaves to see what's going on. He suddenly feels a new quirk appear from Quirk Progenitor, detailing a touched base decay quirk. He looks around and sees it in the staff room. He runs into the staff room to see a purple portal closing near All Might's desk. Izuku uses telekinesis to try and pull whatever is on the other side. A dismembered head flies at him as the portal completely closed. Izuku looks at the hand on the ground. It was gray with a brass connection port at the wrist with 2 holes. He looks around for a plastic bag and uses it to pick up the hand. He finds that Class 1A's schedule was left open on All Might's desk. Outside, the heroes were speculating how the media have gotten in. All they have is a disintegrated gate. Midoriya suddenly calls out to them, saying to come inside, and that he knew something. The teacher gather in the staff room with Midoriya, telling them to not touch anything. He tells them of the closing portal near All Might's desk and shows them the dismembered hand. And they take it to the police. Midoriya asks to speak to Nizu in private, and they go to the principal's office. In the office, Izuku recounts truthfully what had happened. So whoever we're dealing with is able to teleport. Midoriya, did they take anything? No, but the Class 1A schedule was open on the desk. The people that infiltrated UA are affiliated with All for One. Fact. The people that infiltrated UA plan to attack. Fact. The people that infiltrated UA plan to attack today. Fact. Nizu digs through his drawer and fishes out a small device and give it to Izuku. That is a SOS signal with a deadman connection to my computer. When they attack, you have my permission to use All for One to take any quirk necessary, ensure the class's safety, and to prevent escape. Izuku was on the bus with the rest of his class as they spoke about today's exercise. Tsuyu Azui was sitting next to him and asked him a question. Hey, Midoriya, I was curious, what is your quirk? The rest of the class, as if planned, quiets down to hear his answer. My quirk is reactive mutation. My body becomes more immune to harm the more I experience it, and it came with a healing factor. So don't worry about anything happening like yesterday. I'm better than I was. Man, that's one strong quirk. Mine only hardens my body. Your quirk is strong too. I didn't start off like this. I had to build it up. Don't discredit your quirk like that. Thanks, man. Then you've been training a lot, Midoriya, to be able to beat both Bakugo and Todoroki. I could beat him any day of the week, Pikachu. Right. Settle down. We're here. The class get out of the bus to a domed building. They enter inside and see the Space Hero 13. She introduced them to the USJ, aka the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. She then gave a little monologue on the importance of rescue heroes and how a quirk doesn't decide what hero you could be. As this was happening, preemptive warning went off at the fountain and Izuku pressed the SOS signal. A purple portal appears at the fountain, and out from it was a horde of villains, and the final three Izuku recognized. The purple fogman he bumped into and gained spatial awareness. The person who had decay and seeing the hands around his body now knew he was in UA this morning. The last was a giant muscular black-bluish villain with their brain exposed, just like the one All Might brought in when his quirk was analyzed by Recovery Girl. Aizawa, keep an eye on that purple fog guy. I believe that's their getaway. 13 escort the class back to the bus. Midoriya, go with 13. I can handle this alone. I know you feel a responsibility as a hero to make the big sacrifice to buy us time to retreat, but we could actually win this. You just need to keep an eye on Fogman. Arcs of black and green lightning surround Izuku's hand as he flicks his finger, launching a whirlwind at the group of villains, sending them flying through the air. The main three in the back were protected by the bird villain. You were right about me holding back on the first day. Aizawa froze at the sight of the defeated villains, but this slip in concentration allows the fog villain to attack the class, sending some of them away and injuring 13 while Ida had ran to get help. Nomu, get that green-haired brat. The Nomu rushed towards Izuku, who does the same with the help of velocity manipulation. They meet halfway between the bottom of the stairs and the fountain with both of their hands interlocked in a stalemate. Shock absorption taken. Super regeneration taken. Potency increased. Kinetic shock immunity. Izuku pushes it back, sending it to next to Decay Guy, breaking its back. Nomu, get up and kill him. It tries, but only its upper body is able to move. It uses its arms to drag his limp legs to Izuku. Izuku goes and grabs the Nomu and uses ventriloquist. Sleep. The Nomu falls to the ground. Handyman is confused and angrily commanded the beast to get up and fight, but it doesn't respond. Fogman appears once more. Shigaraki, we need to retreat. Kurogiri, we are not leaving without fighting All Might. The Nomu is already out of commission. The fight is lost. I think you're both forgetting someone. Izuku was already holding on to Kurogiri when he said that. Cloud taken. GPS taken. Quirk synergy. Cloud. GPS warp gate. Sleep. Kurogiri falls to the floor. Shigaraki, seeing this, tried to use his quirk on Izuku. Decay taken. Skin irritation resistance adapted. Sleep. Again with the use of ventriloquist, puts him to sleep. Aizawa just stared in shock as one of his students just handled the main villains easily, but something was bothering him. How did Midoriya make them pass out by just touching them? He doesn't have time to keep pondering as the rest of the class begins to gather the top of the stairs. Many of them were a bit roughed up but otherwise fine. The door suddenly bursts open and the class gets ready to fight whoever it was. The dust clears, revealing All Might in his suit. Have no fear, for I am here. All Might. All Might looks around and see Midoriya near the fountain, keeping an eye on the villains. It seems I'm a bit late. Let's get you all out of here. Aizawa had been called up to Nizu's office. He was about to knock on the door when it opens before he gets the chance to. Aizawa, please come in and have a seat. Would you like some tea? Please just get to the point. Sit. Aizawa sits down, a bit wary of Nizu's tone. Oboro Shirakumo is Kurogiri the teleporter. Aizawa sits there processing the information. His friend that died saving people had been experimented on and turned into a fog person. How do we know it was him? That requires a whole other explanation. Do you know of All for One? The quirk thief? I've heard rumors, but he's real, isn't he? Yes, very much so. I believe that Oboro was not supposed to die that day. All for One's target was you. Oboro was an unexpected success. Aizawa remained silent. Now on to how we know of this. I believe that it would be best explained by Midoriya. The office door opened, revealing Midoriya with a serious face. He explained his history with All for One and the true nature of his quirk, excluding One for All. Aizawa sat there silent until, when I took the quirks off of Kurogiri, I had taken Cloud and GPS. We believe that these two quirks combine to allow teleportation. Where is he? He should still be in police custody. Aizawa gets up and leaves the office. Is he gonna be okay? He'll be fine. The office door suddenly opens to reveal Detective Tsukachi. The lab results came back from the hand. It belonged to a deceased Kotaro Shimura. Izuku's body began shifting until Nana appeared beside him and with an apprehensive face asks, "What happened to my son?" Tsukachi was a bit weirded out by this and looked to Izuku, who explained who she was. "Well, Mrs. Shimura, the hand Izuku had taken from Shigaraki belonged to your son Kotaro, who was declared dead over a decade ago. Him and the rest of his family went missing in their home. Their property was turned into a crater of dust. After testing the rest of the hands found on Shigaraki, they were identified as the missing Shimura family, but one person was unaccounted for, Tenko Shimura." Nana processes the information as Nizu decides to confirm something. Tenko Shimura is alive. Fact. Shigaraki used their quirk on the Shimura family. Fact. Shigaraki is a part of the Shimura family. Fact. The detective eyes widened at the implication. Shigaraki is Tenko Shimura. Fact. Nana leaves without a word to confront her grandson. Along the way, he sees All Might and calls out to him, "Tashinori." Nana grabs All Might and drags him with her to the station. She uses his clout to get to talk to her grandson. Sitting in an interrogation room was Shigaraki, hand cuffed to the table, his head down, wondering who else was going to speak to him after the last guy. He has been trying to use his quirk, but he can't for some reason. They must have put quirk cancelers on him. The door opens to a raven-haired woman who looked strangely familiar to him, but he didn't remember where. A slight headache strikes at the thought. She sits in front of him and is looking at him intently. With a raspy voice, he asks, "So what the hell else do you heroes want to know?" She frowns at the question. "Does the surname Shimura mean anything to you?" Another headache clashes as the name was spoken. His head now in his hands, he grunted at the pain. "It means nothing to me. Tenko Shimura." He presses his head into the metal table, trying to suppress the pain. Nana allows him to collect himself. "That's my name?" He responds, his voice smoother, calm. "Do you remember what happened to your family?" "I killed them with my quirk. Dad kicked me out for finding picture of grandma." Nana teared up at that and was angry her son would do something like that. "I was petting Monchan when he suddenly turned to dust. I cried, confused why had this happened. Hannah came out, she turned to dust along with Mom. Dad saw what happened and I killed him. It feel good. Retribution for what he had done to me. He hated heroes. He hated grandma. He hated what I was." He was suddenly pulled into a hug by Nana, tears wetting his head. "I'm sorry I had to leave. I'm sorry." Shigaraki didn't know what to do, but this felt nice. To have someone touch him without the fear of his quirk killing them. The tender love of family. Nana pulls away, and he gets a good look at her. "Grandma?" "Yes, Tenko. I'm Nana Shimura, your grandmother. I never should have left you alone. What happened? Why were you gone?" "I was going to fight All for One. I didn't want him to find my family, so I put your father into an orphanage. I told All Might to not contact him because that might have lead All for One to him. I couldn't take that risk. I died fighting him, and he wanted to use you to go after All Might. But he saved me. When no one cared, not even the heroes. He had his hands and eyes everywhere. How long were you alone before he found you?" "A few hours. I tried to get help, but they all ignored me. A hero saw me and looked at me in disgust. He must have known that you would have been perfect to be molded in his own image and use you to throw off All Might." He pauses at the realization that his life with his sensei was a fabrication. A ruse to mold a perfect villain. A tool to destroy whoever he sees fit. All for One is Ollie. Black sludge began to pour out of his mouth. Nana shocked by this, knowing All for One had plans for him. "Tenko, don't let him know you remember. We'll get you out soon." The interrogation room fades from view, and replacing it is All for One, who can seem connected to many machines keeping him alive. Tamura, I hope your stay at the precinct wasn't too unbearable. Tenko gets up slowly and gets into his previous persona. I'm sorry I failed to kill All Might Master. If that green-haired brat didn't disable the Nomu, it would have been so much easier. All for One shuddered at the mention of the boy. He activates Quirk's sight and sees that Tamura was now quirkless. This was not good, and now that the Nomu and Kurogiri was captured, it was more than likely that their quirks were taken too. No matter, they could just rebuild. Now he needs to replace his student's quirk. Thank God he always had copies. After all, 1 is none, 2 is 1. If it's important, always have a backup. All Might bursts into the interrogation room, but finds Nana sitting alone and Tenko was gone. He's still alive, All Might. We need to beat him for real this time. Nana and All Might leave the precinct after informing them of Shigaraki's disappearance. The next day, the press were hounding UA to get answers to how the break-in occurred. Nizu was on stage along with Powerloader. The break-in yesterday was conducted by a villain group by the name of the League of Villains. They had entered using a teleportation quirk. We are currently developing tech which will prevent this situation from ever happening again. Pro Hero 13 was injured severely during the incident. Any updates on their condition? They are in the most capable hands and is currently resting. How are the public able to trust that an incident like this will not occur at the scheduled sports festival later this month? The festival will be staffed by the finest heroes of Japan, including All Might. Villains would need to make large moves to ruin it. A few days later, Class 1 was having homeroom with Aizawa. Now I know everything has been a bit hectic, but the fight is not over yet. The class is once again left in suspense. The sport festival will take place in 2 weeks. But sir, isn't it a bad time? UA was just broken into. Unfortunately, the event was too big to cancel, and we're using it as a show of resilience, showing that the future heroes will be stronger than the last. It is also an opportunity to sell yourself, so you get good internship offers. The bell rings, signaling lunch. The class was exited for the coming festival, and when they opened the door, they were met with a large group of students. A purple-haired and tried-looking boy blocks their way. Well, if it isn't the survivors. What are you people doing here? It's lunch. They're here to scope out the competition, dumbass. If that's how the prestigious one acts, I don't think they will last here long. What did you say, I begs? Bakugu, stop antagonizing them. You not doing anyone a favor by yelling. You don't tell me what to do, nerd. A voice is heard from the back of the crowd. A green-haired student pushes through the crowd and stands in the doorway of the class. Excuse his yelling. I'm Izuku Midoriya of Class 1A. Why did you help me during the entrance exam? We're heroes, why wouldn't I help someone in need? Anyway, you guys should scatter, lunch is awaiting. Not yet, we're all here to declare war on all of 1A. If you don't perform well during the festival, your seats are open for the taking, so watch out. I believe that all of 1A will agree. We look forward to what you're gonna bring. Izuku walks past him, but as he quietly says to the purple-haired boy, Brainwasher. He turns around to confront him, but he already disappeared into the crowd. For the next 2 weeks, the students trained. Some of Class 1 tried to find Midoriya to get advice, but they couldn't find him. Izuku had spent the time at home with Nizu's permission training to use the new quirks he got, focusing mainly on Warp Gate as it would be useful in a pinch. He knew that eventually his ability to take and give quirks will be revealed, but he trains to ensure that the fallout is mitigated. The day of the festival arrives. The class is in the waiting room awaiting their announcement. Todoroki walks up to Midoriya. In my opinion, you are the strongest in this class. Thanks. But don't think that you will be the one to win this whole festival. Watch your back. Gossipy chatter appeared in the room. The strongest in class was challenged. They wait for his response. I gladly accept the challenge, but don't discount the rest of the class. 'Cause if you do, you'll find yourself alone at the end of the line. He gets up as the intercom activates. Students, please gather for the opening ceremony. Game faces everyone. The world's watching. They step out onto the sunlight to a cheering crowd while being introduced by class by midnight. Now I invite Izuku Midoriya, our number 1 in the entrance exam, to give the students pledge. Izuku seemingly teleports to the stage, making Midnight jump, which was appreciated by the audience. Midnight hands him the microphone. No man is created equal, was a statement I learned young. Not everyone was blessed with a quirk acceptable in society. Quirks using blood, pain, another person's body, and monstrous forms unappealing to the public are cast out as villains, criminals, a disaster waiting to happen. Everyone in this school is lucky to be here even if they don't believe so. The other classes have seen it fit to challenge the entirety of Class 1A after the USJ incident. They believe our survival a great first practical experience. They do not know of the danger present there. They do not know of the monster made to defeat All Might, and I believe my next words best represent our reply. Show us what you've got. Cheers billow out from the stands as Midnight introduced the first event, the obstacle course. The students gather at the starting line, which lead to a narrow entryway to the rest of the course. Izuku stands in the back relaxed while the other students eyed him suspiciously, wondering what he will do. The race began with Todoroki spreading ice all over the entrance and surfing above them. Some of the students were stuck to the floor as the ice creeped up their legs, so Izuku went around to help, though to everyone else a gust of wind blew by as they were freed, and they found the student representative in front of them. Sorry about him. He'll get better in the future. Anyway, let's get moving. The stunned students began to run out, leaving Midoriya alone at the starting room. Midnight walks up to him. Midoriya, why aren't you going with them? Just wanted to make things a bit more interesting. A bit later, and Shoto Todoroki has made it to our final obstacle, the landmines. And it seems Katsuki Bakugo is hot on his tail. Get back here, Two-Face. I guess that long enough. What? Midoriya disappeared, leaving Midnight confused, but not long after a shockwave propagated from his position, pushing Midnight back. And it seems our student representative has decided to join the race at a dazzling speed. He's already passed the pits and is quickly gaining on our front runners. Midoriya was now at the minefield. Todoroki was already mostly across, being slowed down by Bakugo. Midoriya ran through the field, stepping on the mines to give himself a boost. Todoroki and Bakugo see a pink trail coming straight at them, and seeing it was Midoriya, Bakugo ran after him with Todoroki running behind. Get back here, nerd. You sound like a broken record, Kakin. Bakugo yells as Izuku runs past them and arrives back into the stadium. And we have our winner. The crowd cheers and applause can be heard as confetti rained down from the sky in celebration. Todoroki arrives after Bakugo, giving him third place. This isn't over, Midoriya. The 40 advancing students gather in front of the stage with Midnight rolling the roulette once more. It lands on King of the Hill. The game was simple: the greater the zone you reside in, the greater the points. A small mountain grew from the middle of the stadium. The students' starting position is based on how well they did in the last event. Students can team up in teams of 4 or go alone. Whoever holds the highest points by the end of 15 minutes wins the event. Midoriya, of course, was to be starting at the top. Many students were eyeing him, trying to get on his team, but before they could try, he jumps straight up and lands on the mountain and sits down, waiting for the event to begin. The students were a bit surprised at the jump, but they quickly get into position. The countdown began, and the fight began with Team Bakugo and Todoroki rushing up the mountain toward Izuku, but before they can get too close, they were pushed back by an air cannon fired by Izuku with just a flick, sending them halfway down the mountain. The other students saw this and decided to rush him all at once. A large mob of people appear around Izuku, all launching their own attacks at him. A cloud of dust obscures the top of the mountain, leaving the audience in suspense. The dust clears, revealing Midoriya virtually unharmed, with students surrounding him were confused why he wasn't hurt, a sentiment shared by the audience. Their curiosity was quickly quelled by present Mike. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our student representative Izuku Midoriya and his quirk. Reactive mutation, which means the more he is hurt, the less he is affected by it. And as you can assume, he has experienced a lot. Even with the full might of the hero course, they can barely get a scratch on him. Many heroes were amazed by the quirk. It being able to shrug off attacks greatly interested them. Even a certain rabbit had taken note. Izuku stands there looking around at the shocked faces of his attackers. He waits for them to make the first move. They do nothing, still debating on what to do, so Izuku, getting bored, make his own move. He claps, sending a shockwave all around him, sending the students off the peak. Many of them decided it's not worth it and began fighting for second place. The event finishes with Midoriya in first place, followed by Team Todoroki, Team Bakugo, and Team Shinso. There were still some missing spots for the final event, so they were filled by Team Tetsu. The final event was announced as a battle tournament. They were allowed a 30-minute lunch period which Midoriya was going to use to look around the food stalls, but fate had other plans as Todoroki wanted to speak with him privately. They were in a hallway under the stadium. You may have won the first 2 events, but don't think I wouldn't be gunning after you. If you're that serious about winning this thing, why haven't you been doing all you can to do it? 'Cause from what I've seen, you don't respect anyone else besides maybe me. I have given my all. Fiction. No, you haven't. You're a one-trick pony. Though your ice is powerful, you're not trained enough to actually use it for every situation. You use it for every maneuver you make, but you don't have the finesse. There is no control other than power output. I've been wondering. I know your quirk is half hot, half cold. Why aren't you using your fire? I'm not using it. Because of your pledge? Is that going to stop you from saving someone? I vowed to not use his fire. I'll assume you have an issue with Endeavor and he gave you that scar. He is responsible. So he caused someone to do it. Look, it doesn't matter what he did, I'm winning this event with only my ice. You really are arrogant. You really think you would win this while using power which you know is not enough. You've already gotten 3rd and 2nd. Don't you think it's time to pick up the pace? You don't know me. You don't know what he did to me. Then enlighten me. Todoroki told him of his upbringing. The training, isolation, never a good word to say. No love except for his mother, which was also taken away. He spoke to his siblings, 2 others which were cast aside, and another who had passed. Fiction. Guess not. I promised myself I would never use his quirk again. You want him to be angry at you, right? I despise him. Then why are you here? Why are you in UA? Training to be a hero? Wouldn't he be angrier if you aren't a hero? 'Cause at the end of the day, even if you become #1 with just your ice, it is still the Todoroki family name that has succeeded all might way after his retirement. Stop fighting for your father dream. I'm not. And yet you're here fighting for #1. Everyone in that stand knows you're the son of Endeavor. They know you have had early training from the #2. You winning was the expected outcome. It didn't matter if you won with only your ice. To everyone else you were holding back out of courtesy. I'm not using it. Then pull out. If you're not fighting to win fully, and absolutely, then what's the point of winning? An empty jab at Endeavor who will still see this as nothing but a rebellious phase. Your words mean nothing. I will win with only my ice and nothing else. He storms off in anger, feeling like the conversation was worthless. Izuku watches as he leaves. Izuku turns to look down the hallway where he saw some blonde hair which had just ducked behind a wall. I know this wasn't the best place to have a private conversation, but I didn't expect you to be a stalker, Kaken. The hall remains silent. Izuku shrugs, walk out of the hallway. He had felt his presence when he got there, but though noting of it, allowing him to stay and stalk them. The matches were announced, and it seemed that Izuku will be fighting the brainwasher, who goes by the name of Hitoshi Shinso. I look forward to outmatch student rep. As Izuku turns to him to respond, but his mouth is covered by a fleshy tail. Shinso walks away. Don't respond to him. He takes control of people by response, I know. If he was smart, he wouldn't have tried to use it here. Thanks for the warning, though. No problem, Midoriya. The match came as Midoriya and Shinso stand on the concrete platform as Present Mike gave them an introduction. Midnight was on the side refereeing the match. All right, boys, I want a clean match here today. Nothing below the belt and lethal blows are grounds for disqualification. Is that understood? The 2 combatants both nod. Then let the match begin. Let's have a good fight. Izuku nods in response. The both of them stand there seemingly having the same plan. Are you so stuck up as to not even grace me with a verbal response? You people in Class A are all the same, thinking you're all so much better than the rest of us. Isn't that right, student rep? Izuku remains silent. I'll take your silence as an admission then. Your life must have been great. Cheers all around for the future hero. You say you know what it's like for those less fortunate, but you can never truly know, can you? I can't. I've got him, but that doesn't mean I don't have the right to help, just as I did for you during the entrance exam. What? Am I right to assume that your quirk has you viewed by others as a villain? Only the ignorant and blind would believe that. You are not your quirk, neither is the quirk you. I know it's been tough for you. You look skinny as if you haven't eaten or trained much, but that's where you're wrong. I have trained. Yet you are not at your full potential. What were you going to do if you were fighting in a group? They can easily get each other out of your quirk's effects. You may not believe it, but their words have gotten to you. Thinking you're no better than what your quirk makes you. They've gotten so deep in your head that the only value you see in yourself is your quirk. You unconsciously neglect to even train your body. This seems to get under his skin as Shinso rushes toward Izuku. Izuku stays, still letting him get his first hit in. Shinso punches him in the chest, then immediately recoiled in pain, holding his fist. He collects himself and tries to push Midoriya, but he doesn't budge. He starts to get desperate, hitting Midoriya, while not caring for how bruised his fists are getting. Midoriya picks him up and moves him out of bounds. To the audience, he was leaving after images as he moved to the edge of the stage. Hitoshi Shinso is out of bounds. Izuku Midoriya moves on to the next match. Midoriya puts Shinso's arm over his shoulder. Headache resistance. Come on, let's get you to recovery, girl, and I think you've got yourself a couple of fans. Shinso looks up to see some of his classmates commending him for his effort and bravery, and even a few gazes thrown by heroes which held much the same sentiment. The rest of the matches in round 1 continue with Todoroki, Ida, Tokoyami, and Bakugo advancing into round 2. That last round was quite brutal according to the audience, but it was what heroes will be faced with in an unfavorable battle. Izuku's next fight was with Todoroki. As he was walking to his waiting room, he turns the corner to see the flame hero himself, who seemed to be waiting for him. Impressive quirk you've got there, kid, and from what I've heard, strong enough to rival All Might. You'll be a great stepping stone for my masterpiece. You mean you, son? TCH, of course, who else would I be referring to? Then don't speak of people like they're merchandise. You should watch your tongue, boy. What can't take ban? Endeavor enraged throws a flame-powered punch straight at Izuku's face, but it was blocked by a palm. Potency increased. Carrot heat immunity. You really shouldn't be assaulting anyone who gets under your skin, especially in the halls of UA. Endeavor, realizing the implication, looks around for cameras, but sees none. He glances back at Izuku to find that he was gone. A few minutes later, Midoriya and Todoroki stand once more on the raised concrete platform. Todoroki has an angrier look on him. He must have spoken to Endeavor. Ready? They both nod. Let the match begin. Heaven-piercing ice wall. Todoroki sends a huge glaciers of ice, encasing Izuku in it. The audience was in shock and felt a bit disappointed that the match was so quick and anticlimactic, but as midnight was about to call the match, the glacier cracks and explodes, sending large chunks of ice near the crowd, and in the middle of the destroyed glacier stood Midoriya, who looked completely unharmed, bits of ice still stuck to his clothes. The crowd cheered at the spectacle. Midoriya rips a chunk of ice from beside him, throwing it up and down like a baseball. Todoroki, I though you knew that wasn't going to work. He says nothing as he sends another wave of ice, which was immediately blown apart by throwing the chunk of ice, turning it into snow. This continues for a few short minutes as the audience was getting bored. They were dissatisfied that this was all the son of Endeavor could do when faced with an opponent resistant to their attacks, using the same attack over and over and saving themselves by using ice walls. Todoroki could feel their dissatisfied looks, especially his father's. He began slowing down, ice patches appearing on his right side and tiny flickers of flame of the left. The ice moved slower, generated smaller. Consequences from quirk exhaustion, as explained to the class by Bakugo in the stands. Quirks were like muscles. Use it too much, it's bound to break, and Midoriya barely had to use his. Todoroki stood in a nest of ice, keeping himself in place, panting out cold fog. If you're not giving it your all, why fight it? You've been sending the same attack over and over. Seeing it parried over and over should have gotten the point across. I need to win. Then why haven't you tried anything different? And I don't mean your fire. His fire. Your fire. Even without it, you should have had a plan if things went south. All you've done so far has only tire yourself out, and in the eyes of the public, you look like a one-trick pony and the disgraced son of Endeavor. I know you would like that for Endeavor, but most of that is pointed solely on you. Him merely a bad teacher, and you a snobbish prince who has never known hardship. Did my father pay you off? Just so I would use his quirk? Of course not. Rather, I think he completely despises me. Look at him up there. That angry scowl, uncaring of how that would look to the public. His own son defeated by something as simple as quirk exhaustion. Something he, though impossible for his great masterpiece. Izuku waves at Endeavor, which only deepens his scowl as flames intensify, causing some in the stands to back away from the heat. You know you'll lose if you kept using your ice, so why not try something new? I will never break my pledge. Then you must face the consequences of that choice. Izuku flicks and launched a pseudo-air cannon, flinging Todoroki out of bounds. Todoroki was too tired to try to save himself as he lands on the grass unconscious. Shoto Todoroki is out of bounds. Izuku Midoriya continues to the semi-finals. The crowd cheers except for Endeavor, who is glaring at Midoriya as he carries Todoroki off to the nurse's office. So, this was the end of part 2 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.